Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining Real-Time Board MAA with Jane Portman. I can see that Jane is here, so I'm inviting her on screen. And hopefully everything's going to work fine for us.
All right.
Hey.
How's it working out?
It's working great.
Good to see you, Lena.
So we have 10 minutes to go before the official kickoff of the MAA. But I can see that there are people tuning in already. So I suggest that we go over the logistics real quick. And please let us know in our chat if you can hear and see us well. So my suggestion is for everyone to network in the chat. If you feel like exchanging links, posting links to your blogs, your LinkedIn pages, your Twitter handles, that would be great. And we also appreciate your questions. Okay, so Dan and Liam can hear us. This is great. Welcome, guys. And there's one more thing. We have a questions and answers tab, and let me check it. I can see that we already have 10 questions, and it's a good idea to visit this tab and upvote the questions that you want to get answered and ask your own questions. And in case you have any questions, please let me know. We will have about 1 hour. And the way we're going to go about this MAA is we'll give Jane 5 to 7 minutes to introduce herself. And then we're going to look into the questions that were already asked, and we'll be constantly checking our chat. So we'll be mixing questions from the questions and answers tab from our chat. And this is pretty much how we're going to go about it.
Sounds great.
It does. So how are you today?
Doing great. There is already quite a lot of interesting questions. I'm happy to chime in.
Yeah, I really like them as well because it's a good mix. And I will admit that some questions were asked by our real-time board team to get things going. But the way we do it is we choose the questions that were asked during previous MAAs by our users and got the most upvotes. And we post them here because this is how we figure out people want to get these questions answered. So we're not like totally making them up. We're just reusing some great questions from previous MAAs.
I'm upvoting some of them too right now.
You know what? There is one tricky thing about these questions, and I was really surprised. Suppose somebody posts a question, I can edit it because I'm the admin, so I can pretty much do anything with the question. Like, I don't do it, but I find it pretty funny. Like, you don't really like the question, you tweak it a little bit and answer it the way you like it. And then there's one feature, and I really, really want to try it, but I never got a chance. You can actually invite people on screen like we discussed during our test run. And we're always encouraging people. And we had some people who said, yeah, okay, you can maybe invite us on screen. But then they were like, oh, I just woke up. I have my morning hair on. So we'll probably do it just in chat. So if there are any volunteers who want to join us and who want to be invited on screen to actually ask their question, you're more than welcome. Please let us know.
I experimented quite a bit with with workshops, trying to make webinars interactive. And, you know, bringing people on screen is one of the hardest tasks ever. So if anyone wants to break that stereotype, we would really love to see you.
Yeah, I really want to use this feature because I think this is the best thing you can do because you actually get to see people and it's way more engaging. And it's like with video conferencing, you know, if you don't ask, oh, Julian's saying that's because morning hair is a real problem. I mean, morning hair is okay. Who doesn't want to see morning hair? So, Julian, let us know if you feel like joining us here on screen with your question. Yeah, and back to the video conferencing thing, like if you don't have everyone turn their camera on, you won't get full engagement, because when people have their camera off, they're drinking coffee, reading something on the internet, playing with their dog, and when the camera is on, they're way more focused and engaged. And I think we do actually have questions about working remotely with your clients, because I guess many people are interested in getting to know how to actually empathize with end user, how to talk to stakeholders when you are at a distance. So we're going to talk about this in a bit. And as I can see, we already have 10 questions. And from my experience, we have the time to cover from 10 to 12 questions. So keep them coming. We still have room for at least 2 more great questions, guys. And let us know where you all are from. Tell us how you're doing today. And like I said at the beginning, we always encourage you guys to network in our chat, exchange links to your LinkedIn pages, because it's a great chance not just to ask our expert pretty much everything and anything, but to network, interact, and meet new people as well. Okay, so we have 4 minutes to go, and I guess we can be starting, or 3 minutes. I see that there are a lot of people online already, so maybe we can take it slow and start introducing you, and then in 3 to 4 minutes start to actually answer the questions. So over to you, Jane. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm an independent UI UX consultant. I'm based in Russia, and I'm focusing on web applications these days. And since there are plenty of questions about, the career of UX designers, I'd love to share a bit of the background story and how I got to the place where I am now. Right now, I'm focusing on my work in a single website called UI Breakfast. It's like an umbrella brand for everything I do. I have a podcast called UI Breakfast Podcast, surprisingly, and that's been doing pretty well. I'm an author of 3 books, and the latest one is called The UI Audit, which is focusing on web application design, and actually focusing on web applications and niching down on this specific topic has been one of the best decisions, because just having a lot of projects of the same type give you a completely different insight on all the problems you see, repetitive patterns, etc., etc. And also this year, I stepped into software founder shoes. I have a project called Tiny Reminder, tinyreminder.com. And it's a little tool, productivity tool for people who do client work, and for virtually anyone who needs something from others. And this tool will do nagging for you. And I can say that this experience completely transformed my understanding of the way software is built. I've been observing that for many years as a consultant, but being in a founder shoes, it's a totally different story. Because suddenly you have to deal with many other problems. You have to, think of resources. And I have a developer that I have to pay, and he's a nice, expensive guy. So the approach to making UX decisions has totally changed for me. And now I'm way more careful with my clients, because I know how many problems they're facing. As for the story, I started out independently in 2012 when my first son was born. And previously I had quite a few years of software experience. I grew up into a position of creative director in a pretty large agency in Russia. But then when my son was born, suddenly all my priorities shifted, and I just decided that I'm gonna do, my best work on my own. I didn't want to be managing a team anymore because it was quite a hectic task. So I started at Odesk, which is now Upwork, and it's a terrible place to work, but it gave me an idea how client work is organized, and what kind of structure the projects have, et cetera, et cetera. And after spending about half a year or a year there, I decided to level up the game, and I researched a ton of different, books and kinds of advice. For example, one life-changing piece of advice was from Patrick McKenzie, who said, "Never call yourself a freelancer, call yourself a consultant, and think about the business value that you are bringing to the client." And that was kind of the first life-transforming article. And ever since, I had read a lot of things, and I started out writing my own little book called Mastering App Presentation. It didn't bring a lot of money at all, but it was a nice, it was an amazing ticket into the world of big clients and interesting, networks and conferencing and everything. Of course, I've been blogging along the way, building my mailing list, and it's been a very interesting game. Then a couple of years later, I wrote another book for InVision, which was called Fundamental UI Design. And it was an amazing collaboration because they got very nice content from me, and in return, I got spectacular exposure because InVision team, I don't know how many people they have on their marketing, but they're promoting their content like crazy, and they produce a crazy amount of great content. So I think their role in my growth was quite important. And a year after that, I decided to publish another book after choosing the niche of web applications and make it super practical, super useful. And that book was quite a commercial success, at least for me. As for now, I think gross sales are about a little over $15,000, which is not a small amount of money. At least if you ever tried selling something online, it's a completely different task of engaging people and making them pay. So this book has been collecting great reviews, and I'm thinking to probably launch it again this year with some new fresh materials, updated typeface, and so on and so forth. I've been going with your Breakfast podcast. I've been going for a while, and that's been an amazing way of meeting new people and bringing different kinds of insight to my audience. Having meaningful conversations with really interesting professionals. Some of them are just downright famous. Some of them are just narrow professional niche representatives. And I just love fishing out great advice from them, and so that I can benefit and our listeners can benefit from it. So as much as I love UI UX design, I feel like I also enjoy, publishing great stuff as well. Just looking at how everything looks, just feeling that people are getting use of it. So it's a mixed game, but I've been really enjoying it along the way. And so one of the foundational principles I've been following is to share everything I know and everything I learned myself and everything my clients learned with others, because of course, you can kind of hide it as a commercial secret or something, but really everyone's situation is different. So if you have a chance to dispense a piece of advice, it's always great to share. And if something I say today helps you to save, a few hours of time, or maybe a few months of your career, going in the right direction, I'd be super happy. That's one of the things that makes me glad, really glad. I think that's all for the
great story and a great motivation.
Thank you.
Julian, yeah, Julian is telling us I actually would get on, but I can't find a button to do that from this web portal. In fact, Julian, to do this, I will have to invite you on screen. And when we get to your question, if you're still online and if you still feel like doing it, we'll definitely ping you and invite you on screen to for you to join our conversation. So Jane, thank you very much for this great intro. Those who are just tuning in, a couple of things. Don't forget to check our questions and answers tab and upvote the questions that are already there if you want them answered, or ask your own questions. We already have 12 questions. I guess we're definitely going to have time to answer those, but you can keep the questions coming, because in case we run out of time, we'll be able to answer the remaining questions and send them out in the newsletter. The webinar is over. So Jane, if you're ready, we can start answering the questions and start from the one that got the most upvotes.
I feel I hear. Can you hear me?
It looks like we lost Jane. Let me see. Yes, that's a good thing, but I can't see you. As long as we can hear you, we can hopefully start answering the questions.
I just switched the HD quality off. Maybe
your
that
video
helps
should
with the
reappear.
bandwidth.
Yeah, you're back. Yay, welcome back. Okay, yeah, it should. So here's our first question. How to get in-depth insight into
in no
users'
way
needs
I'm a
and
research,
motivations remotely?
master,
Can you please share your
I'm
tips on
mostly
that?
more about hands-on design work. And if you've been working in the niche for a while, you know that we always say, let's do extensive research before we start. But then the client comes in and you have a limited budget. And they, of course, they don't have like extra $5,000 or something for you to do a few days of research for them. So unfortunately, that's something I'd love to do more of. And the remote part of your question is definitely a challenge, but it's probably doing that remotely is the only way, because I cannot imagine a software developer, designer flying in to see their clients in different parts of the world if they're users. Maybe the only exception is meeting people at conferences, but I wouldn't really count on that as a scalable method. So yes, all of user research has to be done remotely. And I would say I'm a big fan of passive user research, which means that you're not proactively interacting with people, but rather exploring their traces of behavior online, which is primarily exploring different forums, like Quora is perfect place, where people are sharing their problems. This method is called Sales Safari. The Sales Safari name was given to it by Amy Hoy. I'm quite sure the method is probably not her original invention, but she definitely shaped it well in her course. It was originally called 30 by 500. I don't exactly remember. I think it's stackingthebricks.com these days. So she says that the best way to do that is to explore the forums of your target audience. So picking the audience is obviously the step number one. And collecting specific problems, and not just problems that people are facing, but specific words that people use to describe these problems, is a great way to research their needs and explore which needs they're facing more often. Because the best way to build software is not to start with a solution, but to start with the problems users have. And when people speak up online, that means that they have exceeded that level of being really mad about something, that they need help of other people, they're ready to speak up. And that's a wonderful way of doing so. In terms of proactive ways of talking to people, of course, customer interviews are great, but they're also they're incredibly hard and challenging, because all of a sudden you have to speak to a stranger and ask them quite personal questions about your product. Surveys are somewhat a medium way of doing that if you're lucky enough to have an audience. And building products audience first is, of course, amazing. It doesn't happen too often, but if you do have an existing audience, then please do everything possible to get their insight. So all these kind of methods, we have plenty of tools for doing surveys. I just came across a great product called 4eyes. I think the website is get4eyes.com, and it's primarily free. And unlike Typeform, it has wonderful ways of aggregating the data that you get from multiple respondents. We have Intercom, which is it's somewhat expensive for a SaaS founder, but it's a great way to interact with your user alongside the product product lifecycle, and alongside their user journey. So you can chat to them on the website. Actually, I'm not a big fan of live chats on the actual marketing website, but it's just growing increasingly crazy. I can see live chat on every single marketing site. But an in-app chat combined with smart lifecycle triggered messages are a great way to trigger some interaction from your customers and get some feedback from them. And for goodness sake, please do store these data, do store their actual words, even if it's like an Evernote folder, or even if it's a simple markdown text file in your computer. It's great to be reused when you're writing sales copy, for example.
Okay, this is it really is a great answer with lots of actionable tips. And a quick suggestion, you're mentioning some services, so I guess we can do like either post the links into the chat as we go, or do a roundup, and like I said, send all the useful links in the follow-up email, so that we can all check the services out, because I didn't hear about the
putting together some show notes like I do for my podcast, and then I'll just send you a list of links that you can distribute to our listeners today.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you. And we're moving on to our next question.
All right. This question of yours, it's
what
yours,
project
right?
are you most proud of so far?
It sent me into tailspin, like literally. I don't have a favorite project.
Yes.
Maybe I do some projects of my own, but they're not specifically work projects. The thing is, the project success and how much I like it depends on so many factors that I'm yet to face one that meets all the factors 100%. It's first, it's the kind of challenge you're solving. If it's challenging enough, and how well you're solving it, how well you manage to get the visual side of things right. Because in most projects that I come in, the visual language is already defined, because these are existing web applications. So I don't have that much impact to make off. But some brand new projects, I can really enjoy building the visual style from scratch. So the visual style, then how great the client is in terms of their personality, how well you get along with them, how understanding they are, how you both interact, how much impact does a project make, whether it's a good cause, whether it's a charity thing, or I don't know, whether it's just a wonderful business idea. And also the longevity of the project, because you want to have something in your portfolio that's alive and kicking a couple of years later. But really, the implementation part is something I don't have any control of. And most of projects, I'm not super happy with the way they turn out in real life. It's just because the founders face so many problems and challenging on their own that, no UI has been fully 100% translated the way I want. And surprisingly, in my projects, for example, in Tiny Reminder, I find that I would probably love to redesign something, but then I have to come up with the reasoning behind that, and I have to come up with finances to fund this. So it's not that easy to just to really do that in real life. So I could say that I don't have a favorite project, but some of them were making impact. For example, a couple of years ago, I worked on a project for First Nations in Canada, and this was software for managing their elections. And when I was working in it, it was nice visual style, but I was so happy that it was actually making impact on the political system. It was really enjoyable. Also, I remember one of my first web applications that I worked with for was it was a CRM, quite typical CRM, and it was totally like old style and not pretty, but it was targeted at a specific audience at gyms and fitness clubs. And the way we made it into great UI helped the founder really niche down and conquer a pretty big market in Australia. So this is where I'm really proud of the not just of the visual style, but of the business output. And of course, a few latest projects have been great, but there I come in from an external standpoint, do a little bit of work. I really love this bit of work, but then I have no idea what happens afterwards because it was just a UI audit, and I just redesigned a bit of the interface and went away. So hard to judge.
Yeah, but the projects
Thank
that
you.
you mentioned are pretty impressive, so thanks for sharing them. Here is another interesting question, and this question was previously asked. There was a professor from Toronto, and he had like a room full of future UX designers, and they all wanted to know how do you see the UX job market changing in the next 5 years? Because everybody feels that everything is changing right now with all the VR, AR
I have
trends
no
and all that
impact
kind
over
of stuff. So
and
what's your
actually I
take on
don't have
this?
too much of an understanding, but I think what's happening now is most likely to be continuing to happen, which is the industry is evolving so fast that classical education and official degree does not make that much impact these days. And a lot of people I know, they're self-taught, like myself. I have an education of software development in legal field, which doesn't make me a great developer by any means, and doesn't make me a lawyer, but just give me overall intelligence. While the UX stuff is totally self-taught over the years, and a lot of friends I know in the same field have similar stories. Some come from marketing background, so maybe that people having a multifaceted personality and some unique story, they're beginning to get more value than they were before. But maybe that was like that before, I don't know. But I can see that education is really getting a bit deprecated. But it might be the opposite. It might be that the education industry will get caught up and will start offering something unique and really sufficient. But my experience shows that it's such a hands-on industry that actual experience matters more. I think that's definitely. And I also see that there is place for niche specialists for every single interesting direction that you mentioned. AR, VR, conversational UX, anything like that. Welcome to become a narrow specialist. That's a great opportunity.
Okay, sounds exciting. And I mean, like I'm a marketing person, and I see that in 5 years' time, I guess I will have to move towards being like more of a data scientist slash marketing person to be relevant. What about yourself? When you think about yourself in 5 years' time, do you think of yourself as a UX UI consultant,
It's a
or you think
great,
you will be
great
moving in a
question.
slightly
So
different direction?
and that ideal doesn't necessarily correlate with real life, as I understand from my founder experience. So ideally, I would like to make my core income from something scalable, be it info products or specifically SaaS with recurring revenue. And then I would really enjoy spending some extra time teaching and doing stuff. But I don't see the UI UX trend going anywhere. But I wouldn't like the consulting to be the main source of my income like it is these days. Even though the percentage of side income from the podcast, from info products, and from the SaaS, it's definitely growing, but it's definitely not primary these days.
Okay, that's interesting. And there's another question, and it is, I don't know how to approach it. Hopefully you do. Can you walk us to the process of designing a
I'm
great
sorry, Elena,
UX?
can you please repeat this one?
Sure. Can you walk us
Oh,
to,
yeah, that
or
question.
probably
Wonderful
through
question.
the
It
process
deserves a
of
book of its
designing
own, I
a
think.
great UX?
So, briefly speaking, maybe just the key
Yeah, it
steps.
does.
Step number one is definitely the research and talking over the users and talking over with the founder or the project manager, just collecting requirements for the project. Next step is wireframing or something like that when you, maybe I'm skipping on user personas here. But yeah, step number two, like optional, you can think of you should write down your audience. You should write down their key tasks and flows that they are planning to do with your app. The next step is wireframing, when you do like low fidelity ideas of what your UI is going to look like. And really everything else beyond that depends on your tool set and your team's tool set, because you can jump straight ahead to a live prototype and do a functional thing that doesn't look pretty yet. Or vice versa, you can jump to visual design and design a few layouts in Sketch. That's my primary tool these days. And for wireframing, I really enjoy Balsamiq. So you can jump to high fidelity tool, Sketch or Photoshop or something, and design the layouts which will be passed on to a developer. And of course, iterate, and iterate, because you're going to come back, maybe redesign specific features and improve according to the user feedback. But yeah, there are so many facets to it. I can't really think of, if I've been trying to go with more detail, it's going to take an hour. So this is the overview.
Yeah. Yeah, and it would be great if you could come up with a list of some must-reads or some resources that you could share. Like if you have, like I always ask people, if you only have, let's say, 1 hour a week to read something about this, on this topic, what would you recommend? Maybe there is a blog, maybe there are good books, maybe there are good podcasts. Aside from yours, obviously. So it would be great if you could share some must reads that can educate people on this as well. So here's another great question. As a UX UI designer for web apps, how have you found niching? Do you think it would be worth niching further? And if so, what would you niche in? I think we did touch
Definitely.
on
So
some of those
I made a
before,
decision
but
to focus
to
on web
sum it up.
applications as a format. You can do the same by focusing on mobile applications, for example. Because a few years ago, that's what I've been doing, but I kind of realized that web apps are more business focused, and that's where money is these days, so to speak. So I'm primarily working on desktop applications. But also, I can say that I kind of filter down my clients more. It's just I don't declare it. I primarily work with business-driven, primarily bootstrapped software founders who have nice little niche tools that need my help. I don't find myself working with like huge enterprise clients. That might be a different niche, for example. But yeah, the general advice is niche down until it hurts. It's really awesome. For example, there are a few niches that I would love to focus on, but I'm not an American citizen. So just getting access to that audience would be hard for me. But I think there is always a place for great applications for medical companies, for lawyers and such, for real estate agents. All these are huge markets with a lot of money in them. And if you get known as a guy for software for lawyers, when people think about that, they just gonna instantly have your name in mind. We call that a Rolodex moment. So when someone says lawyers, they say, "Oh, John is doing software for lawyers. You should contact him." That can be software, that can be websites. So it's kind of two directions: what formats you work in and what audience you work for. And you can niche down as narrow as you want. You can do the whole vertical, like branding and website and some software for a niche, or you can do just websites for just lawyers, as an example.
Okay, this is great. Okay, this is a great example. Thank you. And I really like this question because like it has two questions in it. And the first one is, what according to you are the three main soft skills one needs to become a UX designer? Not the hard skills,
yeah, this is
soft skills.
Different question.
And the second question here is, how do you deal with procrastination if it happens?
Writing is number one that comes to mind. And I think I can't even come up with two more, because I think writing and just communication in general is so important. You have to write copy, sales copy on your website. You have to write sales copy for or micro copy for your client projects. You have to write because you have to, just exchange intelligent emails, meaningful emails with your client, because or write meaningful comments in whatever project management system you have. It's just all over the place. Tool number one is writing. Maybe speaking is definitely helpful, again, because that's how you do interviews. That's how you talk with your customers. Great ways to practice writing is to write for your own platform, like a blog or something like that. And the great way to practice public speaking is to do webinars. Because it's a wonderful place to practice almost conference talks with some kind of audience at no charge at any time. And really, if you really want to shine, just go ahead, do a webinar weekly for 6 months, and you'll see how well you improve. That might be not live webinars, that might be just video snippets or something, but it will make you comfortable in a live environment. And I don't know what kind of soft skills, maybe just empathy. It comes, like, you can practice empathy everywhere. Empathy in terms of feeling this in the skin of your user, feeling in the skin of your client, just trying to see the situation from their standpoint and be kind and generous to all these people that you're interacting with. Oh, that's my favorite.
And what about procrastination?
So much.
That's the best question of all time.
I know there is a breed of people who are just, productivity monsters. They have a fixed schedule and they just deliver and deliver and deliver. I'm not one of them. And I've kind of grown to embrace it and understand that it's all right. So the way I deal with procrastination is that I try to avoid fixed deadlines as much as I can. Anyone who's working independently on client projects knows that you might promise something by Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, on Monday, your kids get sick. and on Sunday you have to go take your granny to the hospital or something, and then your electricity goes out. Because when you work independently, people expect some flexibility of you, but that also means that you have to juggle life errands, also other projects, and maybe side projects of yours, and deadlines are really hard to meet. So instead, I just say that I'm going to send it over within the next few days, in the beginning of the next week, so that that last day is not critical. So you don't sit down at 11 p.m. And I'm based in Russia, which means that if it's 11 p.m., there is still hope that I'm gonna get into the business days in America. This is so bad. Like, really. This means that I really can do other things in the daytime and then hope until the last night, like moment in the night, that I'm gonna ship. It's probably not gonna happen because real work requires time. So maybe then just wait until the next day when you have real time to sit down. And also, I've also observed that productivity kind of comes in waves over, for example, you can be super productive for a month, and then in the next month, you just feel like doing nothing. And that's probably right. It's just that people who are in the office environment, they don't have that luxury to follow their productivity waves and cycles. But people who work on their own, maybe you can switch to some low energy tasks. Maybe you can, I don't know, do some business development for yourself, lower the intensity of client projects. And actually, when I have a low, when I don't get client projects, I am actually happy because I get to rest and I get to work on my stuff, which is also very important. So just embrace it, I guess, and try to not put yourself in the corner for it, and don't chastise yourself for it. It's gonna be all right. Everyone is like that.
Very reassuring. This is very reassuring. I think everybody procrastinates nowadays because there is just so much going on. But these are pretty actionable tips. Thanks for them. Here's another question. How crucial for UX UI designer to have HTML, CSS, coding skills nowadays? Is it going to change in the near future?
Okay,
It seems
I'm not
like
a coding
these two are
designer,
separate, time-consuming
and I
tasks
regret
on
it so
themselves.
much. But at the same time, it doesn't prevent me from doing what I like and what brings me money. So you can survive both ways. But I think people who have some kind of merging skills are the most superheroes. They have the best chance to survive in the online world. Being a designer and developer in one cup of coffee means that you can ship what you design into real world as a project. That's a true superpower, because you don't need a co-founder to do a project of your own. And also, it makes you quite irresistible hire and irreplaceable team member. Because even if you don't do coding, you can do a bit of front end to facilitate, to help out other developers. Because writing, doing very quality front end without possessing some kind of design skills is virtually impossible. Most developers don't have very good understanding of design. So just doing that part of work where you bring your design to pixel perfect implementation yourself, it's wonderful. Also, there are other skills that you can leverage. For example, a designer with marketing skills would be super valuable as well. Just any kind of cross-pollination. We had a conversation somewhere in a podcast where we described different stages of a project, which is marketing research, wireframing, visual design, and coding. So just take two sequential of the steps of this ladder, and you're going to be great. So someone who does marketing research and wireframing is awesome. Somehow I'm probably someone who does wireframing and visual design. And you can be someone who does visual design and the front-end coding. It's wonderful if you can do all of it, of course, but it's a wonderful tool to develop. Of course, you can do without it, but if you have an opportunity, do pursue it.
Great, thank you. Great, thank you. We actually have 2 power users, and they're an awesome team because one of them, Robert, is a UX designer, and the other one, Liva, is an agile coach and a developer. And they are both in consulting, and they work as a team. They've never known each other for many years already, and this is another way out, I guess, because they work on projects together and they have a really good understanding of each other and ways they work. And they also use atomic design, where they agree on various items of their system. Like, they don't have to design or code anything from scratch. They already have like a UI kit or something of this kind, and they're really, really successful. So I think another take on it is just teaming up with someone
Absolutely.
you really trust and you
Teaming up
respect
with
as a
your own
professional,
is
and that could work as well.
is way easier because
It
there is
at least
no
works for them.
human interaction and also no money involved. So it's a lot easier if you can do it on your own. But yeah, either way is fine. Finding a soulmate like that is one big task on its own.
Yeah, we were really surprised to get to know them because we normally either know like product teams where you get a bunch of designers, like UX, UI designers, product owners, agile coaches, or they're like separate individual ones. But then when there's this micro team and they're like crazy productive, this was really interesting to get to know them and to peek in their working process. Here's a question from Dan. Can you give us some advice and or your process for brainstorming?
Frankly speaking, not
Do you
so
often
much.
do that? Do you often
I imagine a
brainstorm?
tool like Real-Time Board would be perfect for putting together a mind map. But frankly speaking, I've never put together a mind map on my own. So how it usually goes in my case, there's usually no brain. So like client projects are not that creative. It's usually like a very strict problem and a very strict environment, and we're just solving this problem. It doesn't require brainstorming. When it comes to my own projects, I just come up with an idea or something I want to do, whip up a simple text document and start outlining. I'll usually outline the process or the steps that are required to make it live, and I'm also outlining the content if I feel like doing so. I can also be collecting little snippets of research because it's all like in the same creative brainstorming process. So I would say the brainstorming happens inside my head, but I do have a canvas open up to capture it. But yeah, I would love I would love to be using mind maps, but no, I'm not. Unfortunately.
And actually, this is insightful. Thank you for the answer. Another MA we did with Lila von Alphensleben, she coaches teams to brainstorm remotely and to collaborate remotely. And she said that like brainstorming, it's not like it's not for everybody, but people do it differently. And there are some common techniques, but there are people who are quieter, there are people who don't speak up, there are people who just brainstorm in a different way. So it really depends on the way you think. Like if you're a visual person and your thinking is visual, or it can be really different. But thanks for your tips. It was really insightful. And now we are moving on to Julian's question, and Julian was the person who volunteered to be invited on screen. So Julian, if you still feel like it, please let me know. Drop me a line in the chat and we'll invite you on screen to answer your questions. Yes, so Julian is ready and we're inviting them on screen. So let's see how that works for us. If I remember it right, Julian has 2 questions. There's a website, actually a couple of those.
Good. Thank you for doing this.
That
This is awesome.
they wanted to get reviewed. Hey, Julian.
I am
How
just
are you
starting
today?
out, and this is the first kind of
You're welcome.
talk I've had with like an experienced designer. So yeah, so okay, so can you how many sites have you done for just sites that are meant to just sell a product? Like the one I'm doing just is supposed to sell a book and that's it.
So I would like to point out that in the last few years, I don't almost do any websites besides my own, and quite rarely ones for the clients who have, web application but need a sales page or a sales website for them. But having said that, I've been working with my own products for a while, so I have a very good understanding of what works and what not. So what kind of advice would you like to get about that? I could give an overview of the basic tips to someone who's just approaching a website as a task.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so I really want to try doing user research for this, but it's hard because the user research is the user task is basically a marketing task. Like the two are very close together. So I mean, I'm just dealing with some confusion about that, I guess. But I mean, okay, maybe just answer the first question about market research. How does market research relate to user research?
Great question. I'm not a marketing professional, so I have trouble kind of strictly defining these terms on the go. But I would say that I don't know, Yelena, you're a marketing specialist. Maybe you could help us out.
Well, yeah, that's the goal. But I mean, so do most projects you work with already have a set of users that they know that do they already have a set group of users that they're coming to you with in general? Do they already know their market when they talk to you? Like
usually so, yeah. Usually, like my perfect client profile is somebody who already has been out for a while and have some kind of revenue, so that they first can afford my services, and second, they have a quite good understanding of what they're doing already. It might need some polishing. That's what I'm helping out with. But generally speaking, yeah, designing audience first is really great. And there are a few tips for picking your audience, which is just pick an audience and research what kind of problems you can solve for them. And when you pick an audience, it's important so that they are someone you know and understand, someone you like, because it's really bad to be dealing with people that are not enjoyable from your side to talk to. And also pick people who are easy to reach out online. For example, there are some kind of audiences who just exist in real life world and don't exist online because that's not their lifestyle. So it's gonna be big trouble for you to reach out to them. So the hint here is if you have trouble reaching out to them with customer interviews, you're gonna have trouble down the road reaching out to them with your product.
Yeah.
So just think about that.
That shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, but it's like, because you have to, like, when you make user personas for all of your, almost all of your projects, right? Personas or not too much?
I don't personally use user personas, but I know it's like it's a classic technique. I usually like to just outline an audience and a primary user persona, just a single one, and I focus on tasks that they need to do with our app. So I would say it's like task-focused approach.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
Sometimes
yeah, and a quick comment from the marketing side, like I think that if you're asking the difference between marketing research, like market research and user research, doing market research, you just understand what the volume, what the potential is, like how many people, like your target audience, there actually are, because you can research your users, you can help them, but there are only 600 of them in the world.
Yeah.
So you're going to create a great product and it's going to solve their problem. You're going to know them very well, but then there is this point where there are not too many of them. So market research is understanding the scale of your business, and user research is actually delivering value to the audience. So this is a great point.
Okay,
Jane,
so
that,
in almost
you
so
create an
almost
audience and then you
so
take it
you're
from
almost
there.
saying that you can almost do your job completely without market research. Is almost what you're saying. You can find enough. Yeah.
As long as you are sure that the market is out there, that it exists and it's big enough, because oftentimes when you're coming up with an idea, there is no market, it doesn't exist yet, and you can be a groundbreaking startup and create a market, or you can be the only one standing, and then you will have trouble scaling because most of the people just don't know that they really need your product because there is no market for it yet. It's like they don't know that there is a
Just
product
one
category.
my 2 cents here. Can I chime in? Sorry for interrupting, Elena. So there is such a thing as a market, and it's if you go out with your, and there is such a thing as a product category, which is form builder, you know, help tool for something, CRM, you know, invoicing tool. Something else. So don't, for your first product, at least, don't invent a new market and don't invent a product category, because that's a tool I personally fell into, you know, with my own software tool, that we invented a product category. People, if they don't know that a product category exists, they're not going to know what to look for. There's not going to be any kind of, you know, search keyword appropriate for that, and they're just not going to think that they need about it. So the product awareness is going to be very low and you're not going to go far. So just think something very obvious. And the competition that exists is a good thing, which means there is market, as Yelena said, and it means that it's being capable of paying money, which is another great thing.
That's not a bad idea. So just look at like, maybe look at the competition and just do like what you said about, what was that? I think I actually wrote that, passive user research. Kind of just like look at, is there a way to do that for competitors, like passive user research on competitors?
Oh, it's like way number one of doing that. So if you're building something, go to your competitors' help forums, if they have those, and you're going to find immense amount of information, what kind of features users crave, what they don't like, and you can solve these problems.
Oh yeah, because like any like they'll have help forms for basically everything users have a problem with, right? So in general, you can look at a competitor's help documentation and see, okay, well,
help documentation. Help documentation is just their internal documents they write themselves. You want to look for the content generated by users, actual user, you know, speaking up. Forums are a great example, or comment threads for some post.
Okay.
Like product hunt, where people are asking for advice and other people are recommending them tools and telling them why exactly they like them.
So well, I don't know if this is kind of, I sent you I just sent you the projects I was working on, and they are about those things. So I mean, I don't know if you want to answer the other questions before you actually look at 2 websites. But
those 2 websites that you sent in, I don't feel like doing the whole big tear down thing right now, but just generally speaking, the general tips applicable to you and to everybody else who's listening. When you are designing a website, think that every page needs to be focused on a single goal, have a clear headline, and a clear call to action in the end, so that people understand like what it is, what's in it for them, and what they can do if if they like what they see on this page. And also a great tip, if you're selling something, to have a fallback way of capturing people who are not ready to purchase, which is like a little freebie behind, on the bottom of the call to action form. Like subscribe for a free course, or if you're not ready to buy, just join our mailing list now or something. No, joining mailing list is not a great call to action. Like a free course, a free sample, or something to get them on your list. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So wait, did you say no mail? That's the idea I was going to do, no mailing list, but you don't like that? And then I'll let you go.
No mailing list?
You didn't like the mailing list.
No. Is business tool number one for any business, because it allows you to capture your people and reach out to them at any time. So
okay,
no, I'm saying that. Right.
Yeah, the only thing is that, yeah, you're not saying join the mailing list because it doesn't convey any value. Like, I joined the mailing list, so what? You say, hey, if you want to get this awesome copy of a super useful book, please share your email. Something that actually brings value, but and it has to bring value, because users trust is something that you shouldn't play around with. Like, if you tell them that it's like a super insightful, super useful material or book or whatever, it better be, because
that being said,
otherwise
there are some people online,
yeah.
and none of us belong to them. Some big celebrities, I don't like Tim Ferriss, Paul Jarvis, Jason Zook, who have huge audiences and are famous specifically for their newsletters. They can say, join other 20,000 people on my newsletter as a call to action.
Yeah.
But it's not us who can play this kind of game. Not yet.
If you as an individual have brand presence, then that's already valuable.
Not yet.
Right? So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hope it helps.
I think it will, definitely.
Okay. Thank you, Julian. It was great having you, and thanks for being the first volunteer ever to come live on screen with your question. Good luck with your business and your websites. We'll see you around. Have a wonderful day. Bye. So we have still some time and a bunch of questions, and I noticed that there is another question about a quick teardown of a website. Did you get a chance to take a look at it? I'm going to post the link in the chat. So let's open it up. And the question is, check out the site. Can you give us some advice? Like, looking at the site, what are some quick ideas that you get? It's really cool, empowering farmers, and there's a pop-up
Just
with
give me a second,
call to
because
action,
it was
subscribe
not
to our
up
newsletter.
yet when we were starting, so I haven't taken a look at it yet.
Sure.
But it looks like a well-designed website.
I really like it. The only thing I really like it. The only thing is that, personally, for me, the pop-up with the subscribe to our newsletter was a little bit too early, because I just opened it up for the first time and I haven't figured out what the Internet of Cows is all about. So I'm not likely to subscribe now. I would probably be more likely after I browse a little bit.
I hope other people have opened the site, or maybe I don't know how we go about it. But designing a website and the visual aspect of things, you got totally right. So a lot of it about the content, about your header number one, the subhead, and the call to action and everything. I feel that the subhead is really good. It says totally talks about your tool, data collection analysis tool to improve performance on meat, milk, and genetics production. It's great because you are mentioning your audience here. You're solving. I would think – of a more powerful them about, or maybe your favorite about them. So
I think we lost Jane, and she should hopefully join us in the next minute or so. Okay, so let me re-invite Jane back on screen. Hey Jane, we lost you. Come back. Hopefully Jane joins us and I don't have to answer all of these UX questions. And this was another question that was asked a couple of MAs ago, like what's your backup plan for technical difficulties when you're arranging a remote session or a remote meeting? And there were tons of great tips shared with us, but right now I don't have a backup plan. Hopefully Jane will join us. I just re-invited her on screen, so she should come back. Hopefully, because it tells me that she's reconnecting at the moment. Sorry about that, guys. It happens even in the 21st century. The internet gets cut off and whatnot. I'm going to ask Jane if she's still here on Skype as well. And it's such a shame that we lost Jane on the most interesting part with the website teardown. Can't believe it. Yeah, come back, Jane. Accepted and connecting, so hopefully it's gonna work. Please come back. It says accepted and connecting, but I have no idea why it's taking so long.
we're getting there.
Okay, I'm gonna try it again.
I'm so sorry.
Looks like Jane's back. Yay! Welcome back. So happy to see you. Sorry about that, guys. Let's give it another try. We almost got there.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I gave such an inspiring speech about the site in a different tab, and then I just came back to this tab and it was not live. I'm so sorry. So where did we stop? Where did we stop?
Hey, nice to have you back. You were breaking up after the moment you said that you really liked the like value prop and how the subtitle explains what the app does. So I suggest we take it from there.
So,
and
I guess it was like a few minutes of
do it again.
Going on. So I would go for, if you're looking at the site right now, am I live? I'm still good.
Yeah, and maybe
unfortunately I'm not on Chrome right now because I was not.
So we can see what you're looking at.
I would look for a more powerful headline number one, because it needs to be more problem focused rather than just a statement that you are empowering farmers, if that makes sense. Also, the sections below look like it's some stats or something else which doesn't give an understanding what problems you're solving, and that it's a software product, because it's just some nice infographics. You want to be to look specifically like a software product, and follow the classic structure, which is pain, dream, fix. Pain makes people stop in their tracks and start reading. Dream describes the benefits that you can bring in their world and the business value, the increase in business value. The fix is how exactly your product helps. And then it can follow up with a call to action where you tell people what to do next if they're interested. So you're doing pretty well with the call to action. The pain thing takes a shape of very colorful infographics, which I'm not a big fan of. Slideshows are not so beneficial because you don't get control over what users see. So maybe if they're all important, line them up one by one, or just pick the most powerful use case here. You have a wonderful grid of features / benefits down the page. I would really bring that a little bit up together with some screenshots of your software. So just that your software site looks like a software site. It's important that people get the context. Generally speaking, you're doing great. I think some testimonials would be cool to add, but you shouldn't have any problems with this page.
Internet of Cows is awesome. Internet of Cows
it's a great
is
niche,
awesome.
So.
It's a great concept. Okay, thank you. So at this point, we are we're live for more than an hour. So, and we still have some questions unanswered. So do you have like 10 more minutes to get the questions answered? Okay, so here's my suggestion. I guess that there will be some people that should go now because we've been online for an hour already. But after the broadcast has ended, you can come back to the event page at your convenience when you get a chance and listen to the remaining part of the broadcast, and you can actually listen to recordings of answers to individual questions. So if you need to go, you can go now, but don't forget to come back and watch the replay. You can either replay the remaining part or you can replay answers to specific questions. And it's great that your advice is helpful. Live teardown of a website is an awesome idea. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate it. So we have how many? 6 questions left, or I guess the 2 from Julian we got answered. So here's a question from Kim. How do you build a consulting business in the UX field? How did you make the transition from working in-house as a designer, and what unique challenges
when you work for yourself
as a consultant?
Is that you have to find your own clients and deal with them. It's great that you don't have a boss or immediate manager anymore. Yelena, could you cut back your volume or something, because I'm hearing myself like double. It started just lately. It was great before. Sorry.
Okay, let me try it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Is it better?
So you have to find clients yourself, and it's really challenging because if you're working remotely, most likely you don't know anyone. So just going from scratch is really hard. If you are, if you live in the same territory where you're hoping to get your clients from, that is, if you live in the US and already have like a business network, that's a perfect place to start. Also, when I started out, before that, when I was working in the agency, I've been freelancing throughout the way and doing some side projects. These were not US clients, but they just gave me an understanding how like I work as an independent professional, just some kind of idea how to organize it. So there was not a problem of skills, but it definitely was a problem of doing sales. And my key was building an authority, which is definitely very hard, very time consuming, but it's totally worth it. The minimum viable thing you can do is to build your own website, tell what exactly you're doing and who you're serving, start your own little mailing list and start blogging to and sending articles to that list. That's like a very simple setup in MailChimp. It doesn't really require much money, just requires time. I think if anyone would go out there and blog weekly for half a year or a year, first you would dramatically improve your writing skills, and second you would really qualify well. Whoever comes along your side, be it client or someone to hire you, you instantly come off as a better authority, as if you didn't have a blog. Just a regular portfolio, it's great, but it doesn't really cut the line, doesn't make you a business authority by any means. Also, it was really helpful to study business skills. That is the essentials of marketing and the way software companies work, so that I can help them in the best way. So the deal with calling yourself a consultant, first you should just put yourself, name yourself a consultant on your site. That's step number one. And step number two is approaching every task that you get from a business standpoint. That is, when you talk about design, think about how that is going to improve their marketing. Think about how that is going to improve their, reduce their churn, for example, or improve their onboarding and make more customers their successful users and converting into paid. So just think how design integrates into the business processes. When you start talking business like that, people are happy that you understand their reality and happy to pay more. And also, great advice, charge more. Don't start with like really low prices, because a high price is actually somewhat of a guarantee of your credibility. If you're brave enough to charge more, that means that you know what you're doing. And if you're charging, I don't know, $10 for something on Fiverr, never go there. That means that you're so desperate to get work that you're not credible enough. And there are many more facets, but build your authority. And also another one is build your network, and not just like network of formal relationships, but network of real friends. You can do that by many different ways, by going to some topical chat rooms. I know a wonderful chat room is a Slack chat room called UX. I think it's a UX Hangout, but something like that. It's huge. I never have time to do that. If you're just starting out, it's a perfect place to make friends. If you have money, invest into going to a conference, because meeting people face-to-face is way better. And those people are not necessarily your potential clients, but they will refer you to somebody else, and they will just help you on this long, lonely journey of making a living online on your own.
A long and lonely journey. Thank you very much. And I think Kim is here with us, so please let us know if you have any questions. And back to your advice on networking, I should say that you're not just saying that networking is great, you actually do it. Because from my experience, what Jane did for us was introduce us to one of her friends or acquaintances, Ed from Clear Left, and he's now guest blogging for us. He's also doing an AMA with us in August, and it really is great. I mean, doing a friendly intro like this can go a long way for everyone, and when you're actually definitely not just looking to exchange business cards, but you're looking to bring value, definitely helps.
I'm
So
glad.
I can say that
What
Jane
you're mentioning
practices
is
what she
another, it's
preaches,
a
and
total
it
different
really
story.
works.
Like,
So
well, referring people is great. What you're doing with influencers is, we even have a podcast episode about brand evangelism and how independent people, independent professionals can collaborate spectacularly with brands. I can call out Real-Time Board, Envision, UX Pin. They're all looking to find people who are willing to share content and become their evangelists. So you can totally embrace that as well.
yeah, collaborating with brands works great. And when people are reaching out to us, we are normally trying to see how we can work together, because this brings value to everyone. So yeah, that's definitely a good way of growing your network as a consultant as well. Here's a question from Marcus. What is the main design topics, or what are the main design topics you have been thinking about lately?
The hardest thing is onboarding.
Off the top of your mind.
I know Samuel Hulick from useronboard.com, and he has, I'm going to put the note, user on board. And he has a book on that, and I've read the book, and I've read many of his articles, and I worked with many brands on onboarding, but it's never a silver bullet that can help them, because just classically, the user engagement in their trial or whatever first steps is really low. And whatever we do is going to help to improve it, but there is no magical tool that's going to just pull people in and make them use your app. I have a great article that I recommend. It's free. It's by Samuel Hulick. It's called Bulletproof User Onboarding, and he talks about how your onboarding shouldn't be just a series of like tips or something that disappears, but rather static elements of your site that hang in there, let the user explore the app on their own, and then just use your help whenever they need it, actually. And of course, cultivating that aha moment when people get their joy and happiness from getting value of your app. But this is always not easy. So I would say onboarding is a big problem. Dashboards is a trendy thing, and not every app uses and needs a dashboard. That's like my mantra. Really, sometimes people just need to jump into their work, but instead, founders show them bells and whistles and some kind of useless stats. So think about that when you're designing your dashboard.
Okay, these are interesting topics that you're thinking about, and I can see that Marcus is online with us. It would be really interesting to get to know what you're thinking about, Marcus. What is top of your mind in terms of design problems? And there is another question from him. It is, how far do you go with the design system documentation?
Okay, design system documentation. I come across this way of designing, so I don't use it myself because I'm more or less working on strategy and something else, like not actually implementing things from scratch these days. But this topic comes up all the time, and there are different names for it. That can be called design systems, pattern libraries. Let me look at the how was it? Something else that people call it. So different names for it, and they all go back to like reusable system. You called it atomic design when you mentioned that pair of designer and developer. So it's working off a system of elements, and there are multiple ways of documenting it. We had an interview with the founder, Roger Dudler, the founder of Frontify, I think the name of the tool is. They allow brands to maintain their guidelines online. That's a great tool. And it's a big problem for huge companies because they hire different teams to do different things, and they want to have it all consistent. for smaller teams, it's not that crucial. You can maintain a library of things in a Sketch document and ship it as a fancy PDF. You can keep it online as a living thing. Just had an interview talking about that, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you, and hopefully Marcus will let us know if there are any questions that he wants. Yeah, sure.
Let me charge my device. We're going that far that I need to charge. Okay.
Yeah, we actually have one last question standing that we didn't tackle. And it's very specific to your background. Like, part of it is what would be your 5 pieces of advice to a person who is trying to switch from Eastern Europe market to Western Europe US company? So the person asking the question, they have a BA Honors Design for Digital Media diploma from the UK and 5 years experience in Moscow studio, and they're apparently looking to switch. And maybe we can make a more general question out of this. Like, if you want to switch from one market to another, what would you do? What would
the
your
question that I answered a couple of questions ago is how you get started as a consultant is totally applicable here, because when you are in a new market, you need to build your authority there and your network there from scratch. So all the challenges remain. And actually, I was waiting for this question. I wrote down networking, writing, building your platform and your authority, and charging more. So we already went over these topics. When you're switching over from the middle of nowhere, like I did a few years ago, and like you're trying to do, it's incredibly important to network, to make friends, to invest in a conference and go there. One of my early conferences was a MicroConf in Vegas in 2014. It was incredibly expensive, and we also went there with a 6-month-old child. And he was teething on a plane. Yes, it was such an adventure, but a lot of business relationships breathed from there and solidified, and I still have a lot of friends, like real friends. So I think networking just comes to mind first. I think, and of course, you need to kind of, if you have a good English knowledge, polish that and keep practicing, be it writing or spoken English. I don't know what your current English sounds like, but it's of course better if you practice. I think quite nice hack is to do a podcast if you're confident enough, because with a podcast you get to know a lot of people, practice your verbal skills, and generally speaking have a wider outreach, just because you have to reach out to someone every week. So makes it kind of faster, I think.
But how did you get started with your podcast? I mean, you came up with an idea, like you wanted, like, because our previous or 2 MAs back, we had Jason Ogle of User Defenders, and he had this idea, like he says, I think that users need to be defended because there is so much bad design. So that was his idea from the start. This is what inspired him to become a UX designer. So for him, it was a no-brainer what to interview UX designers about. But then he said his concept is that he reaches out to his UX or designers superheroes, people he admires, and interviews them. So what is your story? How did you come up with a concept for your podcast, and who did you reach out
about
to?
2
like,
years
how
ago,
did it work for you?
And I just wanted to get confident with the tool and the platform. So I had no specific purpose. I just wanted to interview some people. And over the years, first I became very stable in production. Over the last year, I've been publishing really consistently, and that's very important. And also, first, I tried to just interview people. Second, I had podcast seasons. I invited a co-host and recorded, let's say, 5 episodes with them, with the same person, and then switch to another person. That was nice because it allowed me to record 2 or 3 episodes in a row every time. So it eliminates a little bit of your logistic hassle. But what I ended up with is that people do like seeing new faces more, and it's also extremely important to make episodes topical. And so these days, one of the things I do, I interview people briefly to get started. So I have like an icebreaker blitz questionnaire of 5 questions that gives a general overview of the guest, and then we jump into the main topic. And I try to outline the topic so that there is a big diversity in them, and to introduce people to new areas or niche problems in design, something that they don't deal with on daily basis. So I'm trying to make the topic lineup interesting while keeping in mind that my primary listener is either a designer or someone who's very interested in design. So general topic for the podcast, specific topic for each episode, which is really practical, and everything else you just go from there and practice and practice and practice and get a good mic. It's not that expensive.
Yeah, I just posted a link because we did an episode with our customer success champion, Brent Heckerman. He was interviewed by Jane. I just posted a link to our blog where you can listen to the podcast and look at some of the highlights of the interview. And I was actually impressed by the quality because my understanding is that you interviewed him by Skype, but it sounds like you're sitting next to each other in the same room.
I'm gonna put down
it's really good.
The name of the tool. It's called Zencaster, and it's an in-browser web application that records each of our tracks locally. So it doesn't have to go through Skype before I record it. And then it uploads it to my Dropbox. It's not always 100% stable, but I've really been enjoying it for the quality that you mentioned.
And I recommend listening to your podcast. I'm not like a huge UX authority, but I really like listening your podcast because I think you have like a great talent of an interviewer. Because seriously, you're asking like very structured questions, so it is very easy to follow. And you can actually, after you listen to an episode, you understand what the key takeaways are. It's not like an unstructured conversation, because some of the podcasts, they're fun to listen to, but then when you stop listening, you don't understand what the takeaways are. With UI Breakfast, it's different, so I highly recommend to listen to it. And it's a good idea, like if you have any of your super favorite episodes, the ones that you like best, it would be great if you can share it with people who will be reading our follow-up newsletter, because I'm sure you have like your top 3, top 5 that are the closest to your heart.
Actually, there are people who are just charismatic enough to sit down with their partner and chat, and that will be called a podcast. That will be less structured. But I don't have that much charisma, and I want to meet new people, so I chose to make interviews and to make them practical. So the questions that you mentioned, they come from the main thinking that everything that the guest says needs to be useful to the listeners. I'm trying to extract practical knowledge from them, and I'm glad that it's working out.
Yeah, it is, and it's great. So we're done with the questions, and we're way over time. So I suggest we wrap up. Thank you very much for your time and for your insightful answers. And thank you, guys. Thanks for everyone who found time to join us today and ask great questions. Tune in for our next MAs. You can see them in my profile. We are going to do at least 2 of them in August, and they will be announced soon. And you can subscribe not to miss the upcoming Ask Me Anything sessions. And we'll be sending out a newsletter as a follow-up where Jane will share all the useful links that she mentioned when answering the questions. And everybody have a great day and a wonderful weekend. And stay tuned to UI Breakfast Podcast. Make sure to follow Jane on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're going to share those links as well. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for the
It was
great
fun,
questions. I really
and I
enjoyed it,
really
and I
enjoyed
hope
our
it was
session.
helpful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye everyone. Have a great day. Bye.